Well, hello, we're going to make stuffing here, cornbread stuffing the Southern style, as taught to me by my mother-in-law. It has some shortcuts because at the time I was a nurse working 12 hours a day, and I wanted something easier than baking the cornbread and everything totally from scratch. But if that's the way you want to do it, you can bake regular cornbread instead of using a stuffing mix. A stuffing mix. This is what I've been using for years and years and years. And the thing of it all is, it's been a family favorite, and I've taken it to potluck meals, and it always gets cleaned out, so to speak. So that's a compliment that they like it. We're going to make it in a regular size skillet today, in what is probably considered regular portion. But when I make it for Thanksgiving, I have a bigger bowl than this, and I have a bigger skillet than that. Would you like to show them the bigger skillet, Dana?
Mm-hmm.
We'll let you see the bigger skillet later on. It will blow your mind. Now, this is a generational thing. This recipe came from my mother-in-law. The skillet came from my great-grandmother. But everybody in the family, including all the grandchildren, love it. My husband cannot bear to have a holiday without it. And if we get invited to go somewhere else, he makes sure that that is my contribution, the cornbread stuffing. It's pretty simple. Everything you probably have in your cabinet except maybe the cornbread stuffing. But one of the secrets is, and my mother-in-law told me, you have to put white bread. Plain old white bread. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. And if you've got some laying around that's kind of going stale or day old, all the better, because that helps soak up the broth and all that you put in it. One thing that remains out of my stuffing is I don't put any giblets in it, like hearts and livers and stuff like that, because children are going to be eating this, and I'm going to be eating this. And I have chosen not to put that stuff in there. And it makes it more of a universal appeal. Okay. We put cornbread stovetop stuffing, no other kind. I mean, you can put other kinds, or you can put your own cornbread in, but it's got to be the cornbread kind. We chop up celery, onions, and parsley. And I use dry parsley flakes on some recipes, but for this, I always have to have fresh. Your white bread, this is about 4 slices. Sage is a must. You can't make it without sage. If you don't have sage, you can use poultry seasoning because it's got sage in it. And then if you're going to put salt in just about anything savory, I prefer celery salt. That came from my other grandmother. We got a lot of grandmothers in this mix here. 2 eggs and 1 can of cream of mushroom soup. But you can put cream of celery or cream of chicken soup. It doesn't matter. It always comes out tasting the same for some reason. Fresh cracked black pepper. To prepare, and chicken broth. To prepare your iron skillet, which is what we prefer to bake it in, but you can bake it in another casserole dish, but the cast iron skillet gets a nice brown crust on it, which is very appealing. So everything kind of goes in the bowl. And I put the broth in last because there's not a really hard and fast recipe to this. I put the broth in until I get the consistency of cement, wet cement. When it's that mushy kind of consistency, then we know that we can put it in the skillet and get it in the oven. And you'll see, we'll show you what it looks like. Okay, we've got cornbread stuffing mix in here. With this configuration, we are using 3. When I make my big bowl, I just use 3 or 4 or 5. I can't tell you how much. For this configuration, we're using about 4 slices of plain old regular white bread that you buy from the store. This is celery, onions, and parsley. I don't know what it is, but you gotta have fresh parsley, fresh onions, and fresh celery. It just makes it. You crack your eggs and then you scramble them lightly before you put them in. Now if you were making a big giant amount, you'd put more eggs in. You just have to increase things. You just do it. Some things you just do. This is just to break the yolk up and mix it up a little bit so you don't have like a streak of yolk in there. It kind of helps the total consistency of the stuffing. Part of the moisture. You don't want it too dry and you don't want it too moist. I like the cream of mushrooms myself, but some people don't like mushrooms. It seems one of like olives and mushrooms. Some people love them and some people just don't. But I don't tell them that I got mushroom soup in there and they've never said, "Is there mushrooms in there?" They never do. Okay, now this is another thing. People say, well, how much of this do they put in? You just start cranking. This is the fresh ground pepper. Poultry seasoning, it's got thyme in it, and different things. But the main thing you gotta have is sage. Put a little of this poultry seasoning in it. Oops. And like I said, you have to have sage. Love it. It's kind of. Now we got some sage in the poultry seasoning, so, but I like a little bit extra sage. And I don't put any salt per se in, but I do like celery salt. if I'm going to put salt in any savory dish, I prefer celery salt. I know it just has something extra. Okay, we got the soup, we got the eggs, we need the broth, and it's over there.
Do it from here. Let's go.
Okay, now you notice I still have the empty can. That's because you want to get all the goodie out of here. So, you put your broth in there, and you slish it around to get all the soup out of there you can. Sometimes you have to do it more than once to wash it out. Yeah, see? That's one of those frugal ways of doing things that doesn't do any harm. Okay, now we're going to mix it up, and we're going to see how dry it is. We got to put some more chicken broth in there. I'll probably put the whole carton in there. Now, if you're cooking your holiday turkey, you cook the turkey first, and then you can use the broth off the turkey that's in the bottom of the pan for your chicken broth. But we don't have a turkey cooking today. The reason why we put the white bread in there is when you have the cornbread has kind of a sandy texture to it, and the white bread kind of lightens the whole thing up. And sometimes it takes a little while for the bread, the dry cornbread stuff, to soak up the broth. Now, say you think you perceive you need more broth in there, and you've used all your broth up, and it's Thanksgiving or Christmas Day, you can't go out and get more broth. So if you think you need more liquid in there, you can just put a little bit of water in there. No one will know. But if you have all broth, all the better. Well, I think that's about it. What do you think?
That's perfect. It smells so good.
It does. It has the smell of Christmas about it. Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Okay, we gotta spray the skillet. I'll let you do that because my fingers slip. You put it in your skillet, and look, it fit in there just right, didn't it? The thing is that I want to bring to your attention is when you put it in, see how it's kind of sticking up like peaks and valleys? That's what you want, because it gets crispy and browned in the oven. If you smash it all down and make it even, you don't get that crispy effect that you want. And it's pleasing to have these little knobbly. Now you put it in the oven at 350 for about an hour until it doesn't jiggle anymore when you take it out. But this isn't a real jiggly thing. But it can't jiggle, and it looks pleasingly brown. That's when you're happy with it. 350 for an hour, roughly. And according to your oven, it might be more or less. our cornbread stuffing or dressing. I call it dressing because we don't stuff it in the bird. It's dressing. It's on the outside. It's out of the oven, and see all of our little nooks and crannies, how it gets crispy. Well, that's part of the appeal of it. So, since this is multi-generational, I thought we would let one of the younger people say what they think of it. We have a 13-year-old here who prefers to stay off camera, but she's going to give us her unbiased opinion. There you go. Okay, get it, so stick it out there so that you see it in the shot.
We see it.
Thank you.
Okay, you taste it now, Mom.
Yeah. Nailed it again. It's moist on the outside and it's crunchy. I mean, moist on the inside, yet crunchy on the outside. And when you get close to the bottom, it will have a nice brown to it. See?
Perfect.
There you go. Really well. Once again, I don't know, it just comes out really well every time. And it's a multi-generational favorite, passed down from a lot of different grandmothers. And there you go.
Thanksgiving cornbread dressing.